All right, well, we're about 3 minutes after, so I think we're at a critical point where we could probably just kick off here. So welcome everybody. My name is Dan Vividelli, and I lead the measurement team here at InfoTrust. The measurement team is comprised of experts in data collection, engineering, dashboarding, and analysis in Google Analytics. Today, Vika, who is on my team, will be presenting on GA4 and attribution. Vika has deep expertise in Google Analytics and specializes in app measurement. She also happens to speak 4 languages and loves to travel and has been to 15 countries, but I hear we'll make it to 20 by the end of the year. And also in her spare time, loves to code apps in iOS. For today's agenda, in our last session, we talked through key differences in GA4 and Universal Analytics, marketing attribution, and differences in scope for traffic and implications for reporting metrics. I recommend checking out that session if you haven't had a chance already. But today we'll dig deeper into specific use cases and some known bugs in attribution. At the end of the presentation, we'll also have a poll to collect any feedback for topics for future sessions. So please stick around for that. We'd love your feedback as we prepare for our next session. And a little bit about InfoTrust in case if you have heard of us before. InfoTrust is a privacy-centric digital analytics solution company that empowers marketers to make confident, data-driven decisions. Working with many of the world's best-known brands, InfoTrust partners with enterprise organizations in the CPG, retail, media, health, and finance spaces. We are certified GMP and Google Cloud sales partners with offices spread across 3 continents to best serve our global partners. I happen to be in Chicago, while Vika is in Canada. The growing team at InfoTrust is committed to building a best-in-class workplace and impacting communities around the world, all while accelerating the transition to privacy-centric marketing. And with that, I'll hand it over to Vika to take it away.
Thank you, Dan, for the intro, and I'm very pleased to be your presenter today. Before we dive into our main topic regarding the attribution differences between GA4 and UI, I would like to recap some material from our previous webinar and provide an overview of the differences in the scope of traffic source dimensions in GA4 because it's very important. Just a reminder that GA4 has 3 different scopes for traffic source dimensions: first user, session, and event scopes. And depending on the traffic source dimension scopes, the campaign attribution will vary. Let's review some real-time examples. Let's say we have a new user who visited our site from Facebook display, and this user completed 2 conversions during initial sessions. This user journey you can see illustrated in the table on your right. Because the user converted during the first session, we will observe that the conversions were attributed to Facebook display ads across all 3 different traffic source scopes. So this is kind of expected behavior. Now let's consider a scenario where the user is introduced to another campaign, which is YouTube video, and it's mid-session. The key difference between the GA4 and UA will be that Universal Analytics will generate a new session in this instance with a new source and medium, while GA4 will not. So as a result, you can observe that the session count remains unchanged in the illustrated table below for the GA4. This will also not reset the first user traffic source dimension as it will always show the initial acquisition source medium, so it will remain Facebook display. And similarly, the session traffic source, and you can also see that because the session traffic source dimension, as I said, didn't reset during the mid session, we also see it as a Facebook display too. Very important note that it does not mean that Google is not taking in consideration the new source and medium in the mid session. And as you can see in this illustrated table below, we do see YouTube video has appeared under the event level channel. So it's not like it's breaking anywhere. Now let's break down another example. In another scenario, we see a new user visited the site from the Google CPC but didn't convert. Since no conversions were recorded during the session, it's understandable that GA4 will not attribute any conversion to the first user and session default channel group. Interestingly, the event scope default channel group, which primarily focuses on conversions events, will not record Google CPC. Because as a default channel group is recorded only if the session is associated with a conversion event, you will not see that data in the GA4 for default channel group. Now let's review how the GA4 UI handle campaign parameters as in its order of operation. Once a website session is generated, both GA4 and Universal Analytics follows a similar process of determining campaign parameters. The first step, they check for gclead and declead. So Google checks if there are gclead or declead parameters available in the URL link. And if they exist, they are prioritized over the UTM parameters. And the source medium campaign is then set according to the information that is provided by gclead and declead identifiers. The next step would be falling back to the UTM parameters, and this happens if gclead and declead parameters are not available. Google will use the values of the UTM underscore source, UTM underscore medium, and UTM underscore campaign parameters to set the corresponding source medium campaign values. Then if the UTM parameters are not available as well, then Google will proceed to defining the referral source. And again, it happens actually when neither gclead and declead are not available, including UTM parameters too. So Google looks into the reference source. If a reference source is present, it checks if it's coming from a known search engine. If so, attribution is made accordingly. Then it checks if it is a social media referral, and if it does not fall under either categories, it is set as a referral. There is another sort, like a fourth step that usually Google can also verify in case there is no referral available in Universal Analytics. So Universal Analytics look into the previous campaign from the previous session and assign the campaign that was present before the campaign timeout settings. And if there is no previous campaigns, or if the timeout has passed, which usually is up to 6 months, needs to pass, the traffic will be marked as direct. The next key differences in GA4's order of operations, how Google groups reference sources compared to Universal Analytics. So the first two steps are pretty much common, but on the third step, where we are referring to the source, or Google is checking the referral source, Google evaluates if the reference source domain is known. So in this scenario, it will assign the domain name as a source, and the medium would be the matching Google matching channel that they already have kind of defined in their database. And hence in GA4, you will see a new default channel groups coming, such as cross network, paid organic shopping, paid social channel, etc. These channel groups are completely new and not present in UA, but they are kind of, created based on the new logic, how they are defining the referral traffic. If the first one condition is not met, Google, for example, will not know the referral, like it's not in the list of the known referral for Google. It will be assigned, just generally the traffic will be assigned as referral traffic with as a link to their source will be the link URL for the referral, and the medium will be referral. So after, if in a cases in a scenarios when the referral source is not available, again, similar to how Universal Analytics does it, in GA4, Google GA4 will fall back to the previous campaign. If no previous campaign or the timeout has passed, the traffic will be marked as direct. There is also, of course, the differences into the how, like the difference between UA and GA4 when it comes to the when it comes to the campaign timeout settings, and we will cover it a little bit later during this presentation. So let's go dive deeper into the attribution, because understanding attribution is very crucial when comparing the differences between GA4 and UA data. So overall, attribution models determine how credit or for conversions is assigned to various touchpoints along the customer's journey. In GA4, various traffic source dimensions such as source, session source, and first user source employ different attribution models. While session source attribution in GA4 mirrors universal analytics by utilizing the last non-direct click model, disparities in session calculation methods between GA4 and UA still happen and can lead to variations in how campaigns are attributed to their session-based traffic source dimensions. Again, quick reminder, the instances, the main common instances where we expect the session source and medium differ between universal analytics and GA4 would be in instances when we introduce a newly sourced medium mid-session, or for example, when session is not, or for example, in instances when the session is not reset in the midnight in GA4. Moreover, discrepancies in default lookback windows between UA and GA4 also contribute to differences in attribution. Later, we will delve deeper into the significance of the lookback window matter as well. Additionally, it's very important to note that events code attribution GA4 default to data-driven attribution, but you have an option to switch between last click and data-driven attribution models, which are available within the GA4 UI. Now I'll go back to the next slide. And we'll kind of touch base a little bit the setup attribution settings that you can find there in the GA4 UI. The fact that there is a specific attribution settings in UI, it's something that's pretty much distinct between UA and GA4, because GA4 will be more flexible as it offers regarding attribution model choices that can be applied to your reporting. As I said before, in GA4 by default, it is data-driven attribution, which technically distributes the credit for conversions based on data for each conversion event. However, you have an option to change it. And here are the couple of things that you need to consider while changing it. So first is any changes to the attribution model settings will apply retroactively to the historical data, including your saved explorations, which will be recalculated accordingly. However, these changes will not affect user and session data, which will remain unaffected by alteration due to the attribution model that they have, which, if you remember from the previous slide, it's last non-direct click. Just a reminder that there is also an option in GA4 to select as preferred model. Currently, it's operating in the last click as a last click model, which assigns the entire conversion value to Google Ads interactions if they occur in the funnel. And there is in cases where there is no Google Ads interactions in the funnel, this model functions like a regular last click model. It's important also to note that additions to a click, the models also consider engaged views of YouTube ads, where the engaged view would be considered as a view by a user that watched the ad for 30 seconds or until the end of the ad if it's shorter, and also alongside with other click associated to that ad. Now let's cover a little bit a look back window duration and how it actually also can affect your attribution. So Google Analytics property settings determine the length of the look back window, which determines how far back in time a touch point is eligible for attribution credit. The default look back window in GA4 is 90 days, but you can also change it to 60 or 30 days. In Universal Analytics, the lookback window is 6 months. This means that Universal Analytics considers user interaction over a period of up to 6 months when attributing conversions on goals to various touchpoints. Hence, this will also lead to differences between session channel groups attribution in GA4 versus channel grouping attribution in Universal Analytics. And just a quick note, as mentioned in order of operations for GA4 and UA, if no source and medium available due to campaign settings timeout, Google will default such traffic to direct. And the last but not the least, about lookback window. Any lookback window changes do not work retroactively compared to their attribution model change. It means that the lookback window changes will apply only from the moment of the change in both GA4 and Universal Analytics. Now let's jump into the most common issues bug related to attribution. And there are a couple of them that you should probably know, but there is some of them that you probably not. So I'm more than happy to walk you through some of them that we've noticed. So one of the most common issue that we would like you to be aware of when you look into the GA4 data that can affect the correct attribution would be, I think first most common, it's not set session, source, and medium. So we observed that not set for session, source, and medium may appear in their several instances. First instance is when the session start event is missing. It usually can happen in instances with a server-side tagging. And if that's the case, a solution would recommend you to review your tagging on the server side and ensure that you are sending the session start event appropriately. The other instance of they're not set for session source and medium might happen due to the invalid session ID, or when it is actually missing due to the incorrect measurement protocol implementation. So here we expect and recommend that if you are kind of foreseeing that could be one of the reasons why you are having your not set for session source and medium, we recommend you to ensure that your web developers are using session IDs if they, like, for example, that in cases when they're using session IDs, we want to make sure that they actually use those that are generated the client side and not the server side. The third instance when we expect they're not set to appear in session source and media would be midnight session without a session start. And this is, unfortunately, it's not really a bug, but a common expected behavior that doesn't require a fix. But this is something that you might need to kind of keep in mind, that sometimes if the user session actually exceeds the time for the day of the midnight, there is a high chance that you would get not set due to that reason. And the last and not the least, in case when the custom events trigger before the session start event, we can also foresee that not sets are coming through more. And in this scenario, if you're using the GTM, the main idea is just to ensure that your session start event fires prior any custom event, which means that we would need to do some changes in configuration tags, ensuring that it fires on initialization all pages trigger. And this kind of will help to tackle some of those scenarios. Another issue that we also noticed is related to the GA4 traffic misattribution to direct none. So we observed it to happen in instances where referencer is present, and hence it is a bug because Google seems like bucketing the traffic that has a defined referrer source under direct none sometimes. And this is a bug, and we also raised this as an issue to Google, so they are kind of investigating right now that issue at the moment. Another instance where we observe the traffic is attributed to direct none if a user ID is locked mid-session. So similar to this, to the above issue, this issue was also escalated to Google. And if you want to check if you have a direct non-traffic, you can evaluate if your direct non-traffic is happening due to the user ID being introduced in a mid-session. You can do a very quick check. Like, for example, if you're using reporting identity and you can switch over to device-only reporting identity. And if you observe a decrease in direct non-session-based traffic, you may be experiencing the same issue caused by the user ID being introduced in the mid-session bug. Another way how you can also check the same, you can create a segment of sessions that will include landing pages with UTM parameters, and then also you can add the event that passes that user ID, for example, login event, and then looking at what was recorded for the session channel. If you see that direct non is recorded while UTM parameter in landing page is different, then you are kind of impacted by the same issue right now. So Google kind of investigating 2 instances of the misattribution to the direct non right now. And last but not the least, an instance where we observe misattribution occurring is also with Safari version 17 and higher. So the latest versions of Safari browser now delete Google's gclit and declit identifiers. Well, I actually would say it's more than just gclit and declit, but any type of identifiers like meta identifiers, TikTok, etc. They also get impacted by that. And this is not a bug, but intended behavior of their new browser version. So this identifiers removal is applicable when users are in a privacy mode and does not impact UTM parameters as of now. And if there is no UTM parameters in this scenario, traffic will be attributed to direct non. This is something that you need to keep in mind. And this actually concludes the other webinar. We have still 5 minutes left, so in case you have any questions, we are more than happy to take some.
Awesome job, Vika. Thank you for the download on attribution here between Universal Analytics and GA4. Really appreciate it. Couple things. I think we'll be launching that survey here fairly soon. So if you guys see that pop up, please feel free to share with us future topics that we could touch on. This is a part of a series as we get to the deprecation of Universal Analytics, if I can speak, Universal Analytics. And so additional topics where we can help and support or what this is all about. So we'd love any direct feedback. That said, so we did get a question from Julie, and it's for data captured with Google consent mode, does session start event still fire and session ID get set? That's the question, but Vika, I was hoping maybe you could give like a brief summary of what is consent mode, and then maybe touch on if sessions start and the session ID gets set still.
Yeah, so when it comes to Google Consent Mode, as you know, there's 2 different ways of how to implement it. One is the basic consent mode, which actually requires the user's explicit consent to track their data. So in these scenarios, usually no data will be sent to any Google platforms unless users are consented. And obviously, we would not expect session start or session ID to get populated, because we don't expect the data to be sent to the GA4 or any other platforms at all. With the advanced Google consent mode implementation, it works a little bit different. We don't really require the explicit consent from the users before, but the users can actually change their preferences later. So in this scenario, their session start and session ID will get populated as it should. The only instances most probably would change if, for example, users are having everything declined, like in terms of the basic consent mode implementation. Users, for example, have a decline but then updated to approved. In this scenario, if there is no page additional page view or page load happen at the scenarios, we might lose the attribution. Hope that makes sense. I will also probably there is a couple of more scenarios that I can outline, but because we have just 2 minutes and I would like to cover more, I will probably provide something in writing to you with more additional info and expectations on what you would expect in if the Google Consent mode is there.
Awesome. Thank you, Vika. And I think most folks here probably have some kind of relationship or connection to InfoTrust. So also feel free to reach out to your project team if you have questions. And if not, you can find our emails in the deck as well. I'm happy to connect offline as well. Ashwarya had a question about the differences between data-driven attribution model and last click. And I know we just have a couple minutes left. So is that something that you could cram into a couple minutes as a high-level summary?
Yeah, it will be very difficult to actually knock it off from the spot because behind the data-driven attribution, there is a Shapley value algorithm that works behind, and explaining her a little bit tricky. But what it looks like, usually Google has an ability to view on all different users' journey across all the different users, and they actually kind of start measuring if any of the common user journey bring to conversions more often. So for example, so they look at the chain of different touch points and different media campaigns. So they are kind of looking at all the data and then give a weight to each individual channel based on that algorithm calculation, which kind of channel, given a weight to the channel that usually convert most of the time. So it might not be hence it might not be usually the last channel, right? That kind of given more conversions. So Google kind of take in consideration all user journeys in that scenario, and then attribute the data according to that calculations. I can provide later on the links about the Shapley value and how it works with a kind of more sophisticated explanation of data scientists, which unfortunately I'm not. But yeah, this is kind of a top level.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Vika. And I think we're at time. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, this is a series, so we will be having follow-up sessions. Appreciate the input for folks who provided suggestions for future topics. We will connect again soon. Have a great day, everyone.